Welcome back to our second part of our conversation between Godfrey and Thomas. We hope you enjoyed with us. So I'm curious, what are some of the biggest lessons or insights that you've gained into the so-called other as being part of this multicultural or cross-cultural community?
Yeah.
So Thomas, is there like something that you've ministered to Afrikaans people for a long time, and then you spend time and you sit and you're in the villages, whatever. We do things differently, and there are lessons to be learned. Just give me some of that.
I mean, one of the biggest lessons that we oftentimes discuss is the fact that we have many aha moments actually of saying, I thought we were very different, but we're actually so much more the same. I've realized more that I'm closer in many ways in my culture, my Afrikaner heritage, to the Setswanas, to Godfrey and his people, than to some of my English, same-looking, pale-skinned guys. So because we have very similar family ideas of family, conservative, so that will be at least one thing that really stood out.
I think we must just agree that the English South Africans,
that's the big problem.
That's the big problem. The English ones.
I'm a black Christian brother.
Yeah.
This country needs all of us.
Okay. We won't just.
There's me and Johan. I immediately resonated because of the residue of the English.
If we can choose the English, maybe we're going to say, okay, the Indians as well. And then if
the
tribalism in South Africa problem was when we thought, okay, the Xhosas are clever.
Yeah.
The Zulus like fighting the this. Then when we choose one, then we can choose the other one.
So yes, the black guy is reconciling the whites to
yeah.
Sorry guys, but we need each other.
So Thomas, you were saying that you realized that there are a lot of conservative points of contact between the Tswana and the Afrikaner. How about you, Godfrey? Because you've been a bit of a chameleon in the sense that that you've got a foot in both of these cultures.
Yeah.
A lot of your business interests overlap with black and white.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that stand out?
I think we when one has to look at the broader society in South Africa, my experience has been, and I have to because I grew up Christian. The first point is, can we truly actually love each other, not tolerate? We want exactly the same things for each other. There's policies that govern this country for hundreds of years that segregated us and unfortunately disadvantaged the others. As Godfrey, I was intentional about, even before I met Thomas, about reaching out. I can speak Afrikaans.
I mean, you put your children in an Afrikaans school.
Yes, I was going to talk about that. I have been intentional and calling it a personal calling with my own family. I have learned the language Afrikaans myself. I've read books. I won't go into the names, but I mean, like The War of South Africa. I read the book myself.
Sure.
And nobody recommended the book for me because I felt like the concept of the High Commission was meant for me. I'm talking about the ages of 22, 23. I'm 48 now. And then the next layer was to go and work in Malmesbury and Paarl amongst the family because I was interested in them. I think both sides, we have to reach out. There must be an intentionality of saying, when Thomas approached me and say, I want to invite you. If I had prehistoric burdens in my heart about Thomas and his people, if I can use that language, I would never have reached out to him. I would never have accepted the invitation. And I'm hoping that the brothers on Thomas' side as well are busy doing the same thing. I think that your question around how and what have I been doing myself, it's believing that yes, there's very conservative people on my side as well. The guys that I know will never even want to understand the other side of the coin. But a personal opinion and belief is that if I could myself and benefited what I benefited, and that's the first part. The second part is the economy of this country is a big problem. You want to look at it like other countries and say it's in classes. The economy of our country is not in classes. It's either black or white, my brother. Let's be honest. An exception of a middle-aged black guy like myself is an exception. It's a reality. And many politicians will talk about...
It's a Irish coffee.
Exactly.
So black at the bottom, white layer at the top, black sprinkles. Right.
That is the truth, So we realized as a bigger masses that this thing, the answer is not in the political party's hands. There's broader answers. I don't think we've got enough time for me to try and go into whatever I've been reading and everything. But all that I wanted to say is, as much as I want what's best for my kids, I'm sure Thomas wants what's best for his kids as well. So the moment I approach it with a fear that what I want best for my kids is going to affect Thomas, then we're going to continue having a problem. If Thomas is going to continue thinking that for his kids to be okay and safe and comfortable in this country, it means something against what I'm asking and looking for. So let me put it this way. If as a black guy I believe that for me to get into a certain layer, get out of poverty, I must take something from Thomas. Or if Thomas thinks for him to continue being comfortable as a white guy, it means he must give up something that is his own. I think we're going to continue having problems. I don't have a solution, but I think the solution is outside of me taking or him preserving or keeping. It's about that extra loaf of bread. Where is it going to come from?
But so it's in the gospel.
That's my thinking.
That is part of the answer to your question. If it's in gospel, if I'm a servant, if we can say, listen, okay, whatever the history, then here's what I have. How can I now use it to serve the people that God sends off my neighbor, like the Good Samaritan? Who is then my neighbor? Well, it's all these people. And so I guess that's the heart of my problem with the Urania project. I don't think we can constitutionally or even abroad, we must allow people to associate whomever they want to. But if I'm a follower of Jesus, it really makes it difficult for me to say I can just group without asking who's the people that he sent for me to serve. And I'm a strong believer that nothing I will give away, everything that I try to keep, Jesus says to my mind, I will most probably lose. Everything I give away, I will never really lose. So that's kind of my answer. Maybe it's on a small church scale, but that is partly our answer, I would say, to what we believe at least we can do. Okay.
So let me interrupt you there, Thomas, because a farmer is very emotive. A close second is BEE.
Yeah.
Now, Godfrey, you just mentioned that we've got a big problem in this country. If you look at wealth in this country, by and large, it is still among racial lines. And we are talking by and large. That doesn't mean that there aren't poor whites. That doesn't mean that there aren't rich blacks. We are talking in general. The fact of the matter is that statistically, we are talking about unemployment among white people being around 7%, among black people 36%. White people earn 4 times more. The average white family earns 4 times more than the average black family. So there's a huge disparity there. And now there's this artificial program that the government is putting in place to effect some sort of restitution, which immediately triggers people. And we can discuss whether that's legitimate or not. But if this was an artificial system that created this inequality, then how can we, within the Constitution, create another system that is going to try and fast track this upwards mobility of black people? Now, unfortunately, they're talking about 144 race laws and etc. And I know that people has been affected by this, and there are horror stories of BE. But if you zoom out and you look at the larger picture, there is some method in that, the madness. So let's just put that there. That does not mean that we are defending every aspect of BE. I would even say, Godfrey, I'm not sure if you will agree with me, that it must be reviewed, the system, because there are some very big fat cats at the top who are eating the system, and it doesn't seem to me that it is reaching the poor. I even had a friend of mine from Solidarity say the other day that the people who are most affected by BE are the blacks. They are not benefiting from this thing at all. So we can have all those conversations. But because I'm not a politician, I try
Yeah.
to take the
Yes.
discussion away from it.
Yeah.
And what I heard from you guys
Mm.
is that we shouldn't ask, what is fair and what is not fair or whatever. As Christians together, we are called to share, not to take anything,
Exactly.
not to keep anything.
Mm.
And in your community, I'm curious to learn, have you seen some of these things play out? How have you seen Christian biblical BEE being played out in your community?
Mm.
Maybe I'll start a bit. I'm a deacon. I was ordained a deacon in the church about 3 years ago. We raise money and according to what we need. We don't have a very big budget. We wish we had a sort of budget for it. But how do we use it? We really look at specific cases. The church knows that when you've got challenges, you can come to the deacons. And the deacons is myself. And then we look at, there's a child who needs stationery. We raise the money for them. We've got a couple of domestic workers who we know out of their salaries, there's things that they
Who are
can
in your church?
Yes.
You've got domestic workers
Yes, we're
in your church, which is beautiful, man.
Exactly.
Because it's not only professional black and white. You've got,
Yeah.
I'm assuming they are live-in domestics here who come
Yeah.
to church.
Yes, yes, we do have them. They come to us, and the moment you come from the same background, I'm a son of a domestic worker.
Wow.
I wished to go to university. There was no way my mother was going to afford those kinds of costs. I'm sitting here with a couple of degrees. That child, when their mom told me that she's now done with matric, she's going back to the village, I cried to Thomas and them and gave examples like it's a Esau of how can we help. That's for me a picture of there's aspiration.
Yeah.
The issue of BEE, in my opinion, the policy was exactly to the answer of the apartheid laws. There were policies, I don't know how many hundreds were there, but there were policies that existed even before the national government was still, before the national apartheid. There were policies
Wow,
that
1913 land.
this one's out, this one's in. Now we saw in the last 30 years the government coming and saying, here's policies. As a black guy, I can tell you now, BEE saved some. I don't have a piece of land now. I'm renting for my cattle because I cannot get a piece of land. And those are exceptions and examples. But in the main, there are those people who say,
So the government hasn't given you land.
Exactly, and I've applied, and I've been rejected a couple of times from Indian. So here's my take about our church. Thomas and the elders, we've agreed that we see each other as humans. And you'll agree that we've got white people in our church who come and say, for this specific period, I'm in a season of low. Exactly what the Bible talks about, the highs and the lows. We help them. The BEE is working at the church level across the spectrum. If there's a rent,
People,
those
P,
who
P,
Yeah.
P.
BEE.
People economic empowerment.
Thomas never says to us, yeah, there's two needs. There's a Mr. X and a Mrs.
Yeah.
Y.
Yeah.
Because
We
Mrs.
do.
Y is
the
Y,
need is the
cannot help them. And I fully understand that because I know what hunger looks like. I come from hunger. I come from poverty. I know when a person doesn't have food, what it can do for a child not being able to study because the candles are finished. I come from that. So maybe if as a country, or maybe the church, the Reformed Church maybe, if maybe we had a program of saying, not just the help financially, how many kids do you believe right now from the rural villages and townships, black or white, want to become CAs all the way down to blue collar workers? They can be absorbed into some kind of programs. Can I just close this statement with an example from my village? We had a village chief, Khosi Mokhale. He passed away when I was probably around 7, 8. We've got 2 beautiful schools that he built because he believed in education. And anybody who could come to those schools from other villages could come to those 2 schools. We can drive to that village and I can still show you. These are the schools that were not built by no government. They were built by the villagers who were laborers, domestic workers, a couple of professionals. So I've never stopped believing that the church, with leadership in the middle of the community, including the solidarities and the Afri forums, could look at needs as needs.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thinking.
Sure. So, in our community, I'm also part of a multicultural church. It's unfortunately mostly Afrikaans. And that's not because I don't like Afrikaners, or we just like them to be more connected.
Yeah.
But what I've seen through our interconnectedness is that a friend of mine, he got a job as an electrician because the white boss tells the white employee, "Do you know an electrician?" She asks at church, "Do we know an electrician?" And she connects him to this job, and he's doing well. And they were very worried because his boss is a very racist guy. And we're just getting pictures of them buying together and drinking beer together, whatever. So apparently he wasn't that racist after all, and they were just connecting. I met a very talented lawyer at our church, a black lawyer. At that stage she was still sort of studying. And we started talking politics, and I realized this girl is way more conservative than I am. Like, she would say, Johan, stop apologizing for that and whatever. She didn't have any. And then I said, you must go into politics because you're interested in that regard. And there was somebody in our church at that stage who was affiliated with the Institute for Race Relations, and now she's one of the chief analysts at the Institute for Race Relations. So I got my conservative black friend a job at a place that I disagree with. And we've even seen the reverse. And I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about that, Thomas.
So
happens the other way around.
So I was thinking about a couple of things, in a certain sense, our own story that I will share, but now about. But just to continue with that, I mean, one of our daughter's mutual friend, I'm not going to say her name, but she did really well, but applied a bit late for university. Got in but didn't get a place in the res, and it was just because we connected. So I could black lady, and so she couldn't get a place because of being a bit late, and they were really desperate, not knowing where to stay, and because of our connections with Reformed Church Brooklyn, I could phone up the pastor there. He got me in contact with someone that I could speak to then directly. And got a place, and in res, which was, I mean, it's just about just to say, so yes, I mean, once again, the black girls that was with my white girl in school. I mean, we really had a bit of an effort to get them into places, whereas my girl got into university for the course that she wanted. She did work hard, but then we were blessed with a bursary from a black-owned mine company that came through our connections with good people in church. I don't want to give too much detail as to expose people, but I'm just saying it's sometimes for me very hard. It's not hard because I look at the news and I look at the relations, I look at people saying, I don't feel welcome in the country. I don't feel like I belong. And that I need to go to very far places to find that I don't belong, because the relationships in which I live continue to tell me, you have a place here, you belong here, we together in this, we together. Look, I don't want to be naive, because even as we speak about these things, I hear my friends in solidarity saying, but you know, in the small relationship, we want to do something about the systematic problem that we experience, and I don't think it's wrong to address it on that level. I'm just saying you can so easily get skewed if you don't have lived relationships where you constantly also told another story, where I live another story, and I don't think it's just naivety. It's my lived experience because of relationships. My black friends helped my daughter get a bursary. It's the relation. I know it's the exception. I know it's maybe not even 1%, but that's my story.
So, one of the things that I've noticed is that when I braai, and around those braais there are Afrikaners, which is most of my braais, if I'm honest, then the conversation very quickly turns to politics, etc. And then I represent the other side in those conversations. Then all of a sudden I become a black person. in what I represent. And I venture to say you've defended Afrikaners or whites a lot around your conversations when it's just your family and let's say black friends and they are, it's a bit of a mob in they are very convinced who's the enemy, and then you sort of give the counter perspective. So I'm curious, as we sort of wind down, Thomas, what is that message that you want to give to your people? I know that's problematic because what you guys have been saying effectively is that we need to widen our understanding of our people.
Yeah.
And maybe that is your message, but I'm curious, what is your message?
So it's very simple. We're sitting at this table, and the best. I think we're comfortable around this table because it's not our first time around this table. We've had many difficult conversations. Even after this whole thing with Trump, we had many difficult conversations. Not difficult, but intense, hearing each other out and trying to make sense of what has happened in our community's different reactions. But it's because we have a table. So all I want to ask my people, it's simple. Maybe you are very, very disillusioned. You say we're never going to change it. All I'm encouraging you is to ask God, if you're a Christian, for one friend that you can be honest with, that won't just take what you feel and sense, but will speak into that, but of another culture. Just get one guy that you can just hear him out and try and look at South Africa and this whole story through his eyes. Because what immediately happened, it brings nuance to your story. You realize that maybe I had a different. If we keep having this conversation, not around dinner tables, not around food and meat and drink, maybe 2 bottles of wine will also help with that. But the reality is that space becomes a very different space. And if we then allow each other into our lives, and I have to phone Godfrey and say, listen, I can't pick my kid up from the school. Please, can you do it? And he can do it. Something changes. Yeah. Something changes, and I need to listen to his story of being raised in Soweto and his village, and his whole nuanced story becomes part of my story. So that will be that's what
it becomes so much more difficult to talk about the blacks. And the whites.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the blacks, all of a sudden you say, oh man, Godfrey is one of the blacks. And then there's Tabang is part of the blacks. Sipo is part of the blacks.
It's a nuance. It's
it's not the blacks anymore. It's people and people that you love. And
exactly.
The same is true vice versa. I think when people these days talk about whiteness, white monopoly capital, then it's a placeholder to a certain extent for the swart gevaar, the black danger of old. And the way in which one dismantle that is by putting faces and names and stories to whiteness and blackness.
Exactly.
I know this is a tough time to be representing us whites among your black friends because they're not very fond of us at the moment. Is there a message that you have to your to your tribe?
Look, Johan, it's a difficult one, but I'll say, as a Christian, we've walked a journey. I don't think this is the first time we're at the crossroad of are we blowing this thing up or not. I've got a very strong belief that I can say to my black brothers and sisters out there that let's keep believing the same God who helped us with. I know the way to reconciliation is becoming a bit of a difficult way now, but continue believing in reconciliation. A friend has got a name and surname. If I've got a Thomas Dreyer as a friend, you also have. Your mom is working for somebody and working with somebody and your kids. Let's continue building relationships around the people that we know. I'm sure even the guys who are in high places, be it on the left of the politics or the right, or even the guys who visit America, they've got some friends like Godfrey that maybe tonight, in the next couple of weeks and months, they can sit together, not just on a bride, have conversations, and together maybe try and say, why don't we try to this God and pray to him together? Maybe the answer is actually within us and our God. Without external, we're not saying anything wrong, anything comes from external is wrong, but maybe we should reach out to people with names and surnames, so we know each other in this country. Maybe we can rebuild something special like we started already. Thank you.
I know. Okay. So I know you guys, you're a deacon, you're the pastor of the church. I'm also sort of a dabbling pastor. So maybe the last thing that we say shouldn't be just from an ethnic perspective what we say to our own people.
Yeah.
Because how I understand the New Testament is it changes that word our people. And sometimes when people try to justify these very neat ethnic divisions on this, from a spiritual perspective, they stay in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
But it seems to me in the New Testament there's a whole new community that is called, and that community is not just how we should practice. Not just how we should practice church. It's a political expression as well to be this new kind of person. So, Godfrey, you already alluded to this, but some parting biblical principles, because ultimately the thing that has put you on this journey is your faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no
And Godfrey,
question about.
I don't know you that well, but it sounds like to a large extent it is your faith that's pushed you on this journey. When people ask me why am I committed to reconciliation and justice, it's my faith. At the moment, I find myself in the last few weeks, especially, in very uncomfortable spaces. Thomas is my last white friend at the moment, and a couple of weeks ago I was on the social media, the black guys are applauding me and whatnot. But 2 weeks ago I was in this conversation. I was the only white South African there, and I was challenging the black people on the fact that they have given up on reconciliation, and I said we can't, and and all of a sudden these people were shouting at me and very offended that I would push back against their disillusionment with reconciliation.
Yeah.
So there's this line that I think has been abused a little bit, that you get walked over from both sides if you want to be a bridge between people. But the only thing that keeps one going is not the fact that you're getting high fives. It is a commitment to scripture. Can you maybe elaborate if something spoke to you there?
No. Okay. So maybe I should start on the word itself. I mean, it's very clear that if you read the gospel of Jesus Christ all the way to the apostles and comparing with the Old Testament, as you alluded, it feels very that God actually thrives in diversity, and through diversity with lots of love. I mean, if you really look at the High Commission when Jesus was commissioning the disciples in the book of Matthew, go ye therefore to all nations. There was a joy and love of what Jesus, I believe, taught them, which I believe it doesn't matter what color you are. So it means those who are not enjoying that love, you are compelled to go and share it with them. And yes, your background might be difficult. I can just imagine a guy walking now from Orange Farm with a very hungry stomach to come and preach the gospel to us. But the pillar is very clear from the gospel that if we're going to go out there and teach everything that Jesus has taught us, it must happen because we now love each other, from a premise of really truly loving this country and loving each other and not wanting to be superior above each other. But Thomas used the language being servants to each other, not one nation imposing itself on the other. I mean, that will be very clear. It's not part of what the future is going to look like.
Yeah.
Thomas?
I thought Godfrey was going to Ephesians, which is always his favorite text, but I mean, it's for me very difficult to read that book and not see Paul urging this congregation that was multi-ethnic, coming together and celebrating that unity and speaking about the wall of division being gone. There is no longer any Jew or Greek.
Yeah.
Now he never meant man and woman. He wasn't woke, so he didn't mean suddenly the distinctions disappear. But we are one.
But there's no enmity.
There's no enmity. We're one humanity. That all because we serve each other as Jews and Greeks because we are mutually submissive to each other because we submit to Christ. That is our calling, and how it plays out. So once again, I want to come back. If I can call Christian churches, just to think, even if you're all white Afrikaans speaking little congregation, how is God calling us to be servants of the bigger story? How can we maybe make friends with a black congregation down the street? Real friends. Can we organize a bride together?
Yeah.
And can we figure out and have difficult conversations? Get someone to come and help you to have those conversations. Get like angry with each other and go through it. But make just engage. I'm not saying everyone needs to do what we are doing. It's a specific context in the situation. But the point is that Jesus' gospel always broadened our me and you speak oftentimes about it's our Father. Who's that our?
Yeah.
Who's that our in the our Father? I can no longer just see it as I love my people. Afrikaans people is my people to a degree. God made me part of them, and I feel responsible. I feel very proud of the accomplishment, but I feel part of their shame. So I want to be a true Afrikaner. I don't want to just celebrate all the glories. I want to celebrate everything. But now I'm asking, I'm put here as an Afrikaner, and how can I be as a Christian Afrikaner serve the people and invite people into this? My relationships with other Christians from other ethnicities, and it's not only the Tswanas, it's our Zimbabwe, and they bring another flavor. The Ghanaian, we had a big Ghanaian group yesterday that we did a funeral for.
In white.
White clothes. It was so glorious because suddenly we felt very big church. But I mean, we simply just served them, not just the whiteys, but the whole congregation, helped them to organize the funeral and everything. And so it was glorious. They came to thank us yesterday, and I'm just thinking, I'm so enriched by meeting this Ghanaians. I mean, what a culture, what a glorious culture, and their rootedness in Christianity and their family structures. Once again, very conservative. Uncle speaks for everyone, paternalistic, but glorious. I want to learn. I've only grown through those relationships. I want to invite people into that and say, it is glorious, it's difficult, it's tough, it has a lot of, it's like getting married. So, I mean, my wife has formed me in many ways that wasn't always great. She's challenging me and challenging me to being unselfish. In the same way, I think venturing across the line helps me see a bigger Jesus, a greater calling, a greater freedom.
I'm going to stop us there. I'm going to thank you, and just know that we are big fans of what you guys are doing at Cross Culture, and we are putting our hopes on similar communities to also not just the communities, but to help communities around you guys to understand and think about how to reconcile in this country. So thank you for your time and thank you for your friendship, and we pray that long may it continue. Cool. Cheers.
Thank you.